Oh, and welcome to
Hey, we like your pod.
And we're going to tell you why. Hi, it's Dawn here, and I'm joined, as always, by my trusted partner, Matt Pickett. How you doing with your new haircut, Maddie? Looks good.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's good to have a haircut because, as you probably noticed in the years that you've known me, Dawn, I tend to let it go pretty long, and then I get it cut really short, and just kind of like a cycle that keeps me out of the barber's chair for too many minutes in my ear. I don't know, that sentence got weird. And no, I'm really happy with it. And today there was an awards presentation, I guess, at work. I was nominated. I didn't win, but still, it was an honor to be nominated, which was nice. And it's getting kind of nicer weather out. And this week I actually played some trombone for the first time in a while. Actually, first time since I recorded the theme for our show here. So because my kid is she does jazz. I've mentioned that before.
Right.
And so just sitting down to do some improvisation with her was big fun. So
neat.
Played
so you're
stuff.
just improvising with the kid.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah, it's nice. How you doing, Dawn?
I'm doing just fine. Jamie Cheesebutt, Packer fan favorite of the show. One of the favorites. I shouldn't say that thing. We've been texting back and forth all day. She's doing well. She says hi. Just stuff. Getting stuff done. It seems like I've been running around like a maniac, but I'm good.
Well, hey, back to Jamie. Obviously, let her know how much we all miss her.
I believe Jamie will be coming on with me when you're gone in a few weeks, if I'm not mistaken. I know we have Katie 1 week and then Jamie after that. So a couple of our faves.
And speaking of people who are our faves, hey to Joe, who's here in the chat. Joe, how you doing?
Hi,
man?
Joe.
Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by.
Nice to see you. Did you bring any superlatives, Joe? I brought 5. I'm terrible.
5? Dawn. Oh my goodness. No, that's amazing.
Well,
more recommendations, the better.
Yeah, a couple mentions, but 3 main ones, and then a couple non-NFL mentions. It was going to be 2 and 1, and then it just grew.
and then just snowballed. Whole avalanche situation.
Well, because people keep putting out great content. I thought I had it kind of set in stone. That's why I shouldn't do things ahead of time. Because
that's why you should do things ahead of time. Yeah, no, sure. Yeah.
Flying by the seat of my pants is always better. Oh, yeah. You'll love that big banner behind me.
Pretty awesome.
It's pretty big. It's 30 inches by 50 inches. Sorry, I just showed anyway. Yeah, thank you. It's compliments of, I shouldn't say compliments, but sort of Evan Siegel.
Artwork by Evan Siegel. Posterized version by Dawn.
Yeah. I don't want to take credit for anything, but it's pretty awesome. Right. Yeah, locker room. So hi.
Sorry to say some folks in the chat here. Just hey Erin, glad you're here. She's not glad Joe is here, but so goes, and Mark's here too. Mark, glad you're here.
Mark. Man. Yeah, hey everyone. So does everyone have superlatives for tonight? I'm so excited to get started with our superlatives.
Do you want to just get into it? Should we just do it?
Let's just
you have 15 that you brought. Let's
115. Yeah, it keeps growing, Okay, so I have 3 that are a theme. So I'm just gonna blurt those out first, together, if that's okay. And then you can go, and then we'll see what happens after that. And hopefully we won't be on here for 10 hours. So, okay, let me go back up. So the first 3 are a theme, and the theme is the title of our podcast this week. It's All Love. And because all 3 of them are all about Jordan Love. So Jordan Love was hitting the circuit this week with podcasts. I don't know if you caught any of those. But the 3 are The Pivot, empowering leaders podcast, and then today the oh my god, Thanalysis show. Did I say that right? Thanalysis from the Bucks. Okay, so I'm going to give you the why you should listen to each 3 highlights.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one, the pivot. Jordan was asked very good questions. This is a really nice podcast, by the way. I would definitely recommend it. But he was asked some really great questions. And so he talked a little bit more about how Matt LaFleur really wanted Jordan on the team before he was drafted and drafted. And how exciting that was for him and their relationship and how it's grown since. So we haven't heard a lot about that. I mentioned it a while back. I mean, way back in the day when I heard the rumor had it that Matt LaFleur really wanted Jordan Love, but we still had Aaron Rodgers, and he's a sensitive fella. So we didn't talk about it. It was kind of hush hush, but now that's more out in the open. And I was really happy to hear Jordan talk about it, how Matt LaFleur really handpicked him.
Mm-hmm.
And also how Matt LaFleur has encouraged J-Lo to participate in a group with leaders in other sports, such as cricket and I don't know, other sports worldwide. I'm not sure who else, but he mentioned cricket because he hadn't heard about cricket, which has like over 1 billion fans. And he because it's very like India and all of that.
Yeah.
But
say cricket's big in India, which has like 1 billion people in it. So
over a bit. Yeah. And what he learned from being involved in that group, and I don't know that he gave it a name. I can't remember, but that he didn't have to express himself perfectly, because that he just needed to speak the way he spoke and from the heart. And that he didn't have to, and this is my kind of takeaway from it, you didn't have to craft his statements on the podium. So he just needed to speak to the team and to the fans in a way that was natural to him, and it didn't have to be perfect. I think he didn't say this, but he's more quiet. He's not an outspoken person. Right. And so, like many people, one of the number one cause of stress is public speaking. So if you're not outspoken and you're not like wanting the limelight in that way, I could see how that could be stressful for a young quarterback. So,
yeah.
And then he also, there was a short that I think a lot of people probably saw. He said, you don't have to be Superman.
That one was circulated. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then he said, he learned a lot this year about giving positive feedback to others, not negative, because that's how he wants feedback. It's not, putting someone down or, not going to them with the football ever again because they dropped it once. That's not his style. And you can really see it. And so I really loved that. And then one last thing on that one, who would you like to get advice from? Actually, that might have been the other one, but one of these podcasts he mentioned LeBron James. I have a feeling that Jordan is probably a Lakers and a Dodgers, like for basketball and football fan, because he's from California, I'm guessing, because I've seen him with the LA on his cap and things like that. Yeah. And then from the Empowering Leaders podcast, it was really fun. It was kind of like there was more to it than what I'm mentioning here. But for me, it was super fun. The part of it that was super fun was the walk down memory lane of the playoffs, the 2 games, the Cowboys and then San Francisco 49ers. So they were saying you broke the Cowboys. And he had some really fun insights on the Cowboys game and the Niners game. So it was very emotional. It was emotional for me. You can still say, he really hates having to look at that tape from the Niners game. But since we don't have any games to watch right now, that might be fun to have like that walk down memory lane. And then he talked about how it was asked about and spoke about how J-Lo dealt with that mid-season losing streak and not having any weapons. I think they were baiting him on some of these things. He didn't fall for it. I did, but he didn't. And then they asked him what was the biggest pivot in your journey, and that's their kind of closing. I have these 2 mixed up.
The name of the podcast.
It was from the pivot. I have them mixed up. Sorry about that. But anyway, the pivot was his father, and as far as leaders, he mentioned his father as well. And and a high school coach, which they shouted out, which was really cool. And then from
Nice.
Theonis's show, I'm just gonna leave this one out here. There was a lot. It was a pretty short podcast, but in the closing, he asked some true and false questions about wildlife.
Okay.
I love those. So I'm going to ask you and Chad, if you're listening, true or false? Can a grizzly crush a bowling ball with their bite?
A grizzly. I'm going to say true.
It's true.
It is true. Wow. That's
It's
impressive.
True. It's true. And that's a lead into my next, my final superlatives before we go. So those are my 3 thematics. All J. Oh, Katie. Katie's here. Hi, Katie.
Got some good activity in the chat here. A couple of things to highlight real fast here before we go into the next superlative. Okay. Is that Mark was saying, yeah, that's Giannis's older brother's podcast, and Katie was asking, is it Thursday? Yes, Katie.
It is Thursday.
It is Thursday.
It is, right? I hope so.
Well, so we both happen to show up on the same wrong night. And but she was also asking what podcast you were talking about, because you're talking about a few of them. So just, if you want to say them one more time, the podcasts you were talking about with Love there.
Right. So there were 3. So one was called The Pivot. There it's podcast also on YouTube. The second was Empowering Leaders Podcast. And the third one was the Thanalysis Show. I have a hard time with that name. Thanalysis Show, and that's also on YouTube. So all 3 of them are podcasts and YouTubes. So those were the 3 I was talking about.
Very cool. I've been meaning to check out that episode of The Pivot. I like that show. I've seen a couple episodes. It's impeccably lit. Loved it. So I have to check that out.
It is impeccable. It made me inspired. I'm like, nice. I need to do that.
Yeah. I turned on my ring light tonight. That inspired me.
Well, I'm not fond of the purple, for a variety of reasons, but yeah, I've tried the green, but I think it's too green. Yeah, so I'm working on it. And then when I do blue, it looks purple because of the computer, because of what happens when it goes through digital lamp. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Should I do my first one here?
Yeah, let's see what you have.
All right. My first one is Best Analysis Part 1. There's 2 parts. That's why I said Part 1. This first one is going out to, for the second week in a row, Dawn, to Dara Carragher. Writing for Packer Report. Did you see this one that he did with looking at some of the stuff that Xavier McKinney has done, how it's going to fit within Hafley's defense, and kind of how we could, possibly best utilize him for that? Do you see this?
No, but I thought you were going to. Okay, so he did something with the hip drop tackle thing too.
Ooh, I'll check that out. I didn't see
the one that's illegal now, but it's not illegal. The hip, is it called hip drop? It's only if it's a swivel hip drop.
Yeah, swivel hip drop.
So Dara is the guy to go to for that too, and he did. I can't imagine how long it took him to get through that, but he did some research on that, which is.
So yeah, I'll check that one out. But the one I'm looking at here is you're quite fine. It's called with McKinney in coverage, Packers will send the house at quarterbacks in 2024, and I like this a lot because it was like he looked at statistics for what Xavier McKinney did as a rusher versus as a safety versus like in man coverage, and like how different these things were, and how extremely different the levels of success were. Like, I guess like when he came in as part of a blitz, he was almost completely ineffective, which was like, oh, I wouldn't have guessed that. But the thing is, if Hafley sends the blitz and McKinney stays back, he's going to be extremely effective, because in those situations, like he was the eraser, that Hafley is talking about in his press conference. And so Dara broke that down, statistics, video clips, everything else you could have hoped for and something like that. It was outstanding. So he's just on fire right now. Katie's exactly right when she says that Dara is so dang good. 2 exclamation points.
Good.
It's true.
Really good. Yeah. So good. Two weeks in a row.
2
weeks in a row.
That you mentioned that I haven't even seen yet, so I have to check that out.
Right.
As well. What was it, like a compilation of like different clips of hip drop swivel tackles?
Right. So like the question is it really a problem? Blah blah blah. Like, I think the bigger problem is that we don't pay our refs to work full time and do their job.
Preach.
And I think this is, anyway, I have my own theories about this, but so he went through league wide. How many swivel drop hits
tackles.
there were.
Yeah, if you just say Hibbles,
Swivel hip.
Hibble, Smip, Drop, Smibble, Snip, Dop. You can't think of the word tackle at that point. If you get through the first three words, forget about tackle. Swivel,
So
hip,
how
drop,
many
tackle.
there were? It was like in the low 200s, under 250.
Mhm.
And when you think of the number of games, it's
Yeah.
less than one game that this might occur per season. How much impact will it have? Well, it'll probably make some teams win and lose one game per season. I think it's great for Vegas and for opening the door more for a game going one way or another.
Are you saying it's giving the refs more of a chance to control the outcome of it based on what they have to do, based on what Vegas told them to do?
Sort of.
I love it, Don. You're throwing more conspiracy into this. It's awesome.
Well, I have gambling conspiracy theories because of what happens in the NBA with the refs, and it's still happening. And I just feel like it's just fodder. And I'm not against anything that's going to help with serious injuries. I will never criticize that part of it. But he just went through to see how prevalent it was. And it's not that prevalent. It's prevalent enough where evidently there are some serious injuries from those. It takes people out takes players out sometimes for the whole season. So it needs to be done away with. I don't argue with that. That's what he did. He analyzed league wise how many there were. Now that really were the swivel drop. Now, how many of the refs will call just the drop? Now, I guess they're going to allow the playback for that, or the New York to see those, so that one can be called back. I'm not sure how that works, but that's if they're not. So are the refs going to be anxious to call it more of them than really that aren't swivel?
Right.
That aren't as dangerous, just like the ones that are. I think it's only the ones where the quarterback is hit that they're gonna replay. I don't think they're gonna even be able to question what the ref says. They're just gonna go on right or wrong. So it could change a game. It's a 15-yard penalty, and I don't know what they do with the downs at that point, if it's also
automatic first. It's an automatic
first. So it's automatic first. So this could be really significant.
Mm-hmm.
But as Mark says, 6.5% of all swivel hip drop tackles, thank you for getting it right. I can't. Resulted in an injury, but the injury was serious, not just an injury, but it could some serious injury.
Yeah.
I mean, all injuries are serious. We don't want any injuries, right? But right. So I'm all for it, but I'm also all for having refs that don't have full-time jobs and just doing this on the weekend type of thing, and have better training and better accountability, and are paid better to do their job, and maybe more refs on the field and more of the review process too. So
we just want refs that are able to do the job accurately. That's not so much to ask, I feel like,
No, it's not for a bajillion-dollar business like this.
Yes. They have the money to invest in it. Do that, please.
Please do that, but they're not doing that. They're not doing that. And that is why I have the conspiracy theory I do. Because there certainly is money for that, but it leaves a lot up to chance, right?
Yeah.
Too many unknowns.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So part 2, let's get to part 2.
Oh, yeah. So my second superlative, right? Best analysis part 2. And this one goes out to our friend Dusty Evely. His first in the series for the Passing Chronicles for off season was outstanding. It was about one of the Aaron Jones touchdowns, the one from the first game and against the Bears this last season. And so what was cool about this is that he had the play call, which is if you read through it, it's like a bunch of almost random words thrown together is what it reads like, So then he broke down what all the different parts mean and how you could see on the play what exactly was happening. So just kind of breaking it down to manageable chunk by manageable chunk to see how this play call worked. And what the result was, of course, was Aaron Jones springing free, running for daylight, picking up the touchdown, and unfortunately also pulling his hamstring. It's that one where like at the end he's
Oh,
like
I remember.
touching it. Remember? Like
yeah, and then he
kinda-
like ran
runs
right
off the
down the
field.
tunnel.
Yeah, exactly. Right down the tunnel. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was that one, which was like a really cool play.
Mm-hmm.
Sad ending because of the hamstring, of course. He missed a bunch of games after that. But yeah, just the way how Dusty breaks it down, you know, as we've said before many times in this show, makes it very like he teaches it well, basically, right? It's easy to understand. He puts it in language that's like, okay, this makes a lot of sense, and you know, it shows like video clips and stuff with it. So typical W from our friend Dusty. It was excellent work. Looking forward to the next one.
I love it. Everything from Dusty is impeccable. So that's a win-win. So,
and that's a series on Cheesehead TV. I don't know if I said that already. So you can find that particular bit of Dusty's output there.
Great. And I'm commenting. I'm responding to a comment here. Let me just do it here instead
for
of
it.
trying to type because I forgot what I was typing. I'm having allergies, so my eyes watering and I'm itching. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm a mess.
So yeah, Mark brings up a good point here.
Mark,
take it. Go ahead,
yeah. Sounds like the NFL might be de-emphasizing and finding them instead. I think they're going to get a fine either way.
That sounds like, yeah, they might be trying to lean more towards the fine as we go.
That would be great. That would be
great.
good. I mean, it is a significant fine. I mean, I agree. I think I'm all for like really nasty, dirty playing. Kick the player out of the game. I mean, I am not like I'm not saying football should be violent and all that. I mean it is, but
it is violent.
It doesn't need to be gratuitously violent.
Yes.
And
and excessively.
I would wonder if there is a player or a team that the NFL had in mind, or if that maybe I have to look more closely at Dyer's research, but it'd be kind of interesting to know if there's a team that is doing this more frequently. He said that the Packers only did it but once is too many, but 3 times, but it was legal 3 times during the year, during last season, 3 times. So that's not, and I'm not sure if that included the playoff games too.
I wonder.
But that's on the lower spectrum because 3 times, how many teams are there?
32.
32, so that's 90. So there's some teams that clearly that would be lower than the average.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I agree with Katie. The rest should be full time for sure.
Yes.
100%. Like, what is happening here? It's so amateur. It's like they're amateur.
Yeah, it's like exactly. It's not their actual job. They are therefore, by their very nature, than amateurs. Yeah.
Okay. And you have a third.
Oh, should I just go for it? Okay, sure. My final one, continuing in the best draft content of the week series I've been doing ever since we kind of got into the draft season. This week's best draft content goes to our friend Paul Noonan. So he is, as you know, a big stats guy, big Packers guy, and some people might forget sometimes within the Packers community, he's also a really big baseball guy. So a lot of times he has several different stats that he's developed that are kind of like borrowing from baseball stats that exist. So he's adapted one of those, for example, the WROPS, which stands for wide receiver on base plus slugging. This is a stat that combines catch percentage and yards per catch in a particular sort of Mark's got it right there, WROPS, that combines them in a specific ratio. And he realized that he had it skewed too much to one side than the other because it wasn't giving like a really helpful result. So before he kind of released this next round of like what we can see from this stat based on like the people in the draft, he made some adjustments to it to make it more reflective what the what kind of direction the college football has been going in the last 5 years. So it should be even more finely tuned. And so he had 2 different articles. One was using this to identify the most overrated wide receivers in the 2024 NFL draft, and then also the most underrated wide receivers in the 2024 NFL draft. And these are both on Acme Packing Co., of course, where his work tends to be found. It's just really fascinating the way how, people are able to use advanced stats to uncover interesting, truths and ways to predict things. And so part of the article, especially the first one, was talking about like by making the adjustment to the way he looks at this, based on, you know, what sort of output we saw from some of the receivers in the last couple of years, it helps him to like then of course predict how receivers will do going forward. So hopefully an even better predictive model for that. And then, you know, goes through some of those specific receivers who seem to be overvalued and undervalued in the draft. So some names to watch for. Like one that he identified last year when he was doing this was Dontavian Wicks, which we saw how that turned out. He was amazing. So
Right.
you know, some really interesting stuff to be gleaned from this. And of course, you know, Paul Noonan's writing style is it's fun, it's funny, it's informative, you know, it's smart. I love it. So that's another good couple of articles, sort of companion pieces to check out.
I like it. I like it. Well done, you, and well done, Paul Noonan. Almost called him Paul Newman. Noonan.
Writing from beyond the grave about football.
Oh my God. I love it. Well, so my bonus this week is non NFL content, and I only had one, but then I just had to add one that I just sort of had to do last night in the middle of the night, which led me down a path.
Okay.
So I'll tell you all about that. But the first one that I was going to mention is just the best non-NFL Instagram is Tourons of Yellowstone. Have you heard of Tourons of Yellowstone?
No, what's that?
Okay, well, Turon is a derogatory term combining the words tourist with moron. It's used it's used to describe any person who, while on vacation, commits an act of pure stupidity. The term is considered park ranger slang that describes how some tourists act when entering a national park. Pet peeve of mine, by the way, which is why Instagram showed me this account. Also, unfiltered wild animal attacks on idiots, which is super gratifying. So there are videos on there of people doing things at Yellowstone, just at Yellowstone alone. That I have a memory. My brother hadn't been to Yellowstone, and my sister-in-law and I met them up there a few years, not that long ago, a few years back, and I was telling my brother about people that like go too close to the buffalo, to the bison and such, and they get flipped up in the air and stuff. And my brother is so fun. Like you just have to know him. So he's driving through Yellowstone, and we saw some people more than once, kind of close, very close to just buffalo. And he opens his window and shouts out, "Flip them!" to the buffalo. I mean, I don't know. It's my brother. So to me, it was extremely funny. And I mean, I was laughing for a half hour, but I have that memory. Anyway, so super gratifying Instagram if you are interested in seeing nature take care of dumb people the way it should.
That's just basic evolution. That's just survival of the fittest, right?
Yeah. People say that, like Darwin at its best and stuff. Yep. Well, so, and then just a reminder here on this, you know, and that's why the segue was kind of funny about that last podcast that I mentioned. Can a grizzly crush a bowling ball with their bite? He had other questions for him too, but I thought that one was fun. Just a reminder that the Tooth and Claw podcast is killing it. They have a YouTube channel now. I've mentioned Tooth and Claw. It was actually Dusty who mentioned Tooth and Claw to us, right? Killing it. They're killing it.
Oh, no, wait. Wasn't it John Meerdink who recommended it?
Oh, maybe it was.
I think it was.
I always say it was Dusty. He always correct me. Yes. Sorry.
I think it was Dusty for a second. That's funny because I was like, yeah, that's the one Dusty. Wait a minute.
Well, because he likes horror. I thought he was saying he was doing something a little. Anyway, it's fantastic. I love it. And I don't listen to it as much as I should, but so I was listening to it last night. You're going to love this one.
Okay.
So last night, I listened to the most recent episode, but it ended up being a two-parter. So I listened to the most recent 2 episodes, and it was so total like over 3 hours. So I was up pretty late. And guess what it was about?
What?
It was about the man-eating leopard of Rudraprayag. So
I was going to guess that, Dawn. Just kidding.
Well, a cat that ate people.
There's that. Yep.
Right. A cat that, and then it led me down a path of research. It's like, is my cat wild? Because I've always thought that Tosh was at least half wild cat. And I still believe she is. And so I looked up all kinds of research, and she has 6 of the 7 characteristics of a wild cat.
Okay.
She actually has 8. They didn't mention one. So she actually has 7 of 8. The only one she doesn't have is that her tail is not fat and short. Her tail is normal. Yeah.
Sure.
Now my feral cat that I take care of downstairs outside, she's half wild cat. She's got a really fat short tail. So it was kind of interesting. And so I did a bunch of research on that. This leopard, do you know this leopard? Have you heard about?
I'm gonna stop you there, Don. What are some of these characteristics that Tosh has that lets you know that she's wildcat? And is one of them tries to eat their owner? Is that one of them? What are some of them?
Well, a lot of them are physical character. They're mostly physical characteristics in the markings. And so I've always thought that she looked pretty wild. I mean, and she was a wild or a feral cat. She was found in the mountains. Like she wasn't in a city, like a city feral cat that came from someone's home, who got dumped and a couple generations down. She probably came from some very wild ancestry. Right. I thought she was maybe part bobcat, but they said that's not possible. But because she's pretty settled. She's not crazy or anything like that. But it's more has to do with their markings and like if they walk on their tippy toes or not. She walks on her tippy toes, not flat. Like if it's a domestic cat, they're going to walk a little more flat. She's I didn't know that was a feature of the wildcats, but they show the 2 different gaits and you can see it. The tail, the markings are a big thing. So yeah, just kind of weird stuff, but nothing behaviorally, because basically domestic cats and like the big cats, like a lion or whatever, they're like 90% genetically the same. Right. So, right. So it's not like, so their behavior is going to be what it is. That did lead me down another pathway about cat personalities. So I did some of those too, but yeah, that's why Jamie and I were going back and forth today. I was sending her some of that stuff, but no, cats, Tosh is she is agreeable. She's an agreeable, like if a vet tested her personality, they would consider her agreeable. She's not a dominant cat. She's not super skittish. She won't go out near other people, but she's friendly with other cats, which is interesting. But like if I have a friend over, or the doorbell rings, or even when I brought her to Wisconsin, she played with my mom's cat, but she didn't want anything to do with my mother.
Which is like for a cat, that's pretty good, all things considered.
It is, because some cats won't play with other cats. They won't play nice with other cats. She's great with other cats. She's great. So, and she hasn't tried to eat me yet, but I was really interested. So I was listening. You learn so much about biology because this is an animal biologist. I can't think of the word for it right now that does this podcast. So it's very informative, but it's also funny because it's his brother who isn't educated in that way, and then a friend, like a childhood friend. It's pretty funny, but you also learn a lot, and that's why I was like, I'm going to look more into that. But so this leopard started eating people literally in 1918, like when World War I happened and all kinds of things changed in the world. And so this leopard was responsible for, they think, about at least 100 human deaths.
What?
Yeah. And this little village, I want to say it was an 8-year, no, it was probably longer than 8 years, but it was for a certain amount of time. It wasn't like all 100 at once. And he talked from a biologist standpoint, why that would be. And explained how cats don't necessarily have a taste for humans, or grizzly bears don't. But what happens if they find out something is easy prey and they figure out how to, not necessarily easy, but if they figure out how to do it, they continue doing that. That's why that's why they kill lions. We just had a mountain lion attack. I think that's why I was listening to this too. We had another one, which is pretty rare. out here. And it was a hiker out by themselves out in the wilderness. So sorry, but that's not really smart to do. Especially in the spring because there's babies and stuff like that. But we just had, and they kill the lion because once they kill a human, it's been shown that they'll do it again. And so I learned a lot about how that works and why. So yeah, through this podcast, but it was an interesting tale. It was a 2-parter. And so this one leopard was responsible for at least 100 deaths. He terrorized these villages, the small villages around this other small village, basically. They're very small. Of course, they didn't have they had doors, but they weren't like steel doors like what we have now, right? And so the leopard could get through the door, could open locks, could get through windows, always went for the children, the women, or the sick person. Left the stronger person behind. A lot of them had outhouses. So they go out there at night and get them. So they were stalking and that kind of thing. And then they couldn't, deal with this cat. And this is just really sad because the cat ended up getting killed. But they brought this leopard hunter in, this famous leopard hunter. And then the second part of this podcast, which was like another hour and a half, was just how he got so exasperated because the leopard outsmarted him. And he outsmarted him. I think he was watching him so that he knew how the traps worked and he would work around them. He'd put like a goat in there, or it was really kind of gross because they would use, the leopard would kill, so they would take that body and use that as bait.
Oh wow. That's wild.
It's so wild. This podcast, it's gnarly and it's funny. It's not funny, but anyway, he did finally get the leopard and he was very respectful about it and all that. So he wasn't like, yeah, I killed the it was
right.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being like renowned as a famous leopard hunter? That's a title. That's like a reputation that precedes you. That's amazing.
Especially today. And then evidently after this, he stopped hunting animals. He developed a respect and a relationship with the animals and stuff. So yeah, so I don't think Josh will try to eat me, but it kind of does make sense because you do hear about domestic cats occasionally going after a sick old lady and like suffocating them or eating her face off or whatever, and it does happen. That's
not something I would say to make fun of, like what.
No, it happens.
That's a real thing.
It doesn't happen often, but it's happened.
No, but it has happened. There's precedent for it.
Yeah, but it's
yeah. Don't trust the cats, man.
I know. Yeah, like Tosh loves to be like really close to my face and stuff, and I don't let her. It's like, okay, I'll do this. I can get away from my face.
Like a velociraptor testing the the electric fences. That's what that's like. How much can I get onto Dawn's face?
Oh yeah, she loves to like put her like whole cheek and like shoulder on my face, and it's like, yeah. I can see how somebody would suffocate.
Yeah.
But thankfully, she's pretty big, so I don't think she can sneak up on me and do that. She's a big girl.
I was like, think she's big so she can suffocate you better, faster? Like, what do you mean? Can't sneak up on you? That makes no sense.
No, she's not small. She's a big cat. So, so definitely Tourons of Yellowstone is a blast. I've been, checking it out regularly. I thought I might have mentioned it here before. I wasn't sure. And then a reminder about Tooth and Claw. Yeah. And Tooth and Claw is still killing it, literally. It's because it's about wildlife animal attacks, usually resulting in the death of a human. So, all right. Joe says, don't die in the house. Yes. If in the house with the cat will eat you. Yeah. I had a story about that, right? Way back when our podcast first started. Didn't I, Matt?
Yeah.
You remember that?
I do remember
the lady in Texas.
Yeah.
It's so bad. Why do I laugh? It's not funny.
Well, I mean, it can be tragic and funny at the same time. Both these things can be true. There's gallows humor, kind of laughing to keep from freaking out about cats killing people, eating people. Yeah, no.
Yeah, true story, Joe. True story. It happens.
And then Mark says that dogs will do the same too.
Thank you, Mark.
There you go. It's not just cats. Hashtag not just cats.
It makes sense. If they're hungry, if they're stuck in the house and they can't get out, and all there is that. Yeah. So the lady in Texas was the one who, she was really antisocial. She didn't have any friends, and she had all these cats living with her. And there was just a whole like side story about her and the city wanting to buy her property for, I know, some kind of development. She wouldn't sell it, blah, blah, blah. And somehow or another, she ends up dying in her house. She ends up between, like, she went up in the attic, I think, for something. I don't know why my eye will not stop watering. She went up in the attic and somehow fell because they had to figure out what she did. And they didn't find her for like 2 years. She fell between two walls, way down like 9 feet, and couldn't get back up. And then all of her cats ended up down there with her dead. They were all over the house too, dead, but
just crazy. Absolute insanity. I love it.
Oh gosh. Okay. Any final thoughts before on that nice, lovely visual?
I think final thoughts would be, we talked a lot in the recent weeks about like, hey, there's a lot of great draft content out there, and support those people doing that. And if you don't like it, that's cool. I feel like this week there was like a little mini explosion of non-draft content that was kind of coming out. So, which was nice, because like I'm loving the draft stuff. I'm learning a ton, but it's still there's like days when I've listened to like 3 like draft heavy podcasts back to back, and I'm like, okay, I need to like figure out something else to listen to. Which if Aaron's still in the chat here, that's where watching stuff comes in real handy, I've got to say, because that's another quick side shout out here to a podcast. Aaron and the aforementioned Dusty, and also Monty, I was gonna say Ferd. No, his real name is Monty. Have this great podcast called Watching Stuff, where they talk about like Marvel stuff. And it's really cool to listen to that one because they're all like super smart and funny. But also it's like people who I like listening to talk about something different. So it's good to break up with stuff like that. Point being, this has been a good week for non-draft content as well as draft content, and I love to see that. So for sure, we're beyond blessed to have so many people doing so much cool stuff out there. So just drink it up.
We really are. Yeah. I guess my final thought would be that, to echo that. And it was kind of a good week for J-Lo to go out and hit the circuit for a little bit before, and then I don't know if it's next month that we're going to hear about his new salary, like his new deal with the Packers that's expected to come through and all that. So can you believe, like, isn't it April 15th when, wait, no, they don't start training camp. May. It's May.
Yeah, it would be after the draft. So
yeah, after the draft. It can be April 15th, May. Okay. And Mark's right there with it.
May. It's May.
But it's right around the corner.
Yeah.
It's
crazy.
Crazy. All right, Maddie. So that's my final thought. My eye will not stop watering. I'm not sure. I have really bad allergies this year.
Oh, goodness.
For some reason. Now, so with that, I'm going to go take some allergy medicine.
And let's bring it on home here. All right. So I don't know if we're going to have a guest next week, Dawn. I guess we were supposed to have one tonight, but that didn't quite work out. Maybe we'll have them on next week. I don't know.
Maybe.
TBD. Yeah. We'll see. Yeah.
We had a fabulous. Feel better
soon. Yeah. Danny was going to be joining us, and she's sick, unfortunately. So hopefully she's in better health next week. But anyhow, friends, we'd love to have the chance to interview you and shout you out if you're a subscriber and a football fan. If you'd like to nominate someone to be a guest on our podcast, please let us know. Our DMs are open on all the social platforms. And folks, when you subscribe to our podcast, please subscribe to our podcast. Hey, get your friends to subscribe to it too. It'd be great. So when you subscribe to our podcast, you help us to keep spreading the love in our community. And the best way to help this podcast grow is by sharing it with your friends and family.
Yes, Maddie, that's right. Because we love you. We're so glad to know you, to be fans of you, and have the luxury of being fans of the most storied team in the NFL. We appreciate your support, your subscriptions, and sharing our pod. And we look forward to seeing you next week on
Hey, we like your pod.
Football in general comes down to discipline and people owning their roles. And when you aren't disciplined or you go outside the scheme, bad stuff happens.